Hello, welcome everyone to the Leaders of Africa Live Series program on food insecurity on the continent of Africa. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, I'd like to do a brief introduction about the Leaders of Africa. The Leaders of Africa is an organization that mobilizes the power of rigorous inquiry and creative expression to advance equity, justice, and selfless leadership and focused development on the continent of Africa. We facilitate a supportive Pan-African community for collaboration that cultivates impactful and translatable research, which also amplifies diverse perspectives and leverage creative audiovisual, graphic, and technological design. Today, our discussion focuses on the wicked problem of food insecurity on the continent of Africa. And the reason for this conversation series is because despite the progress made in the past decades, food and nutrition insecurity remain a pervasive and pressing livelihood and development problem in sub-Saharan Africa. In 2014, about 265 million persons, representing 28.3% of the population in sub-Saharan Africa, were affected by severe food insecurity. From 2016 to 2018, about 58% of the population in sub-Saharan Africa, corresponding to about 606 million people, were classified as severe and moderate food insecure. The number of undernourished people in the region of Africa has also increased from 219 million in 2016 to 233 million in 2018. And there have been several efforts aimed at addressing this problem of food insecurity. And one of the approaches that is being considered and that is being promoted especially by some stakeholders in the academia and by some international development organizations and local development organizations on the continent of Africa is organic farming as a mechanism to addressing the problem of hunger and food insecurity on the continent. However, controversies abound whether organic farming can help address or even escalate food insecurity in the continent, with some exponents, particularly the promoters of the technology, arguing and suggesting otherwise. The controversy remains as hot as ever. Today, I'm joined by four distinguished personalities with established presence in the organic farming sector in Africa and globally. I'm joined by Professor Nkiru Meludu, a professor of food and nutrition security, with affiliation to the Department of Agriculture and Extension, Rural Development at the University of Ibadan. Professor Nkiru, welcome to our program today.
Thank you very much. Though I have moved to Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka now. Yeah.
Oh, that is great. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure being here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we are also joined by Professor Khalid Assi, who is affiliated with Institut National de Recherche Agronomique in Morocco. Thank you, Professor Khalid Assi, for joining us.
Welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, we also have a highly respected professor in South Africa, Professor Raymond Auerbach, with affiliation to the Department of Soil Sciences and Plant Production at the School of Natural Resource Management, Nelson Mandela University. Professor Raymond is the author of that popularly and globally acknowledged book that is entitled Organic Food System, Meeting the Needs of South Africa. Welcome, Professor Raymond.
My colleagues, it's an honor to be with you and to have my colleagues from all over Africa and to realize Africa is rising. This is our century.
Yeah, we're also joined by Dr. Mowati Majuma, the chairperson of Tanzania Organic Agriculture Movement.
It's privileged to be in this group among the renowned professors. I'm now a retired mayor, organic farmer on the ground, shouting quite a lot in terms of seeing all the opportunities and seeing people that close their eyes, not take it up as it is happening in front of our eyes before it is going to be taken away again.
Okay, thank you so
Looking
much.
forward.
Thank you so much, Professor Juma. Okay, let's get started on this note. Professor, growing up
Yeah.
in Nigeria, could you please reflect on what the situation of agriculture is and what's the response of agriculture to the problem of hunger and insecurity like?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Growing up, I hope I can still remember. But then it's very interesting. When I was growing up, I grew up in a family where they consider agriculture very important. We live in a city, but during the holiday, we go home, to a village where I have my grand auntie, and this grand auntie loves farming. So we usually follow her to her farm, and we enjoyed it at that time. And in Nigeria at the beginning, in early 70s, agriculture was booming. We used to see granite pyramids. We used to see yam in bands, all over. We were seeing that foods stay longer, on the bands and on the shelf. And agriculture was the in thing, producing different things and then different produces. And agriculture was really assisting the Nigerian government so much, not until a time where we discovered oil. And then it was something else. Agriculture, I know, helped Nigeria to build so many, edifices. We used to have a cocoa then, and this they use it to build a cocoa house. It's about sky what do you call it? High rising buildings. There's so many things we are done with agriculture. Even by the time we hosted the first stack, the first stack, it was agriculture, money that we use. So agriculture has been helping this economy so much until, lately, but we're going back to agriculture again in full force.
Yeah, so I'll come back to this conversation about the pivotal role that agriculture played in driving the economy of Nigeria and feeding the people of Nigeria during your growing up years. Because I'd like you to discuss more about what type of agriculture was it that actually drove the Nigerian economy as of then, and what type of agriculture was it that also fed the people of Nigeria as of then, because we are going to use that to pivot to the conversation on organic farming. Before I come to that, Professor Meludu, let me ask Professor Raymond, what was it like growing up? And was there a problem of food insecurity and hunger? And what was the response of South African agriculture to this crisis?
Well, thank you for the question. Because I'm answering from South Africa, there have to be three different answers to that. The answer for me personally is I grew up in the city. My father was involved in education. So from the point of view of my father, agriculture was not a major thing. He always wanted me to be a professor of mathematics, and he was very disappointed when I went into agriculture. However, from my mother's point of view, she was a gardener and she grew up on a farm, and my mother taught me to love gardening. And from her point of view, agriculture was very, very important. And then, of course, I'm a white South African, so I'm speaking in this case from a privileged point of view. But my father and me and my brothers were very much involved in the struggle against apartheid. My father, as an educator, did his master's on prejudice in South African textbooks and his doctorate on why black kids drop out of school. And so we were very much part of the struggle to find some kind of social justice in South Africa, because of the fact that so many people did not have access to land, so many people did not have access to education. and food was a major problem. So in the new South Africa, I think we have put a lot of energy as the democratic South Africa into trying to support small-scale farmers. We have not been all that successful. Until 10 years ago, we found that most of the young people were running to the cities. They didn't want to farm. They regarded it as not cool. But suddenly, over the last 10 years, there's been a transformation, and the young people are getting involved in agriculture, and they all want to get involved in organic agriculture. I started farming organically 53 years ago, and with my first garden when I was 16 years old. And so the first 20 years, they were sure that I was nuts. And then they thought, maybe this guy is not nuts. Actually, organic agriculture maybe is important. And then they made me a professor. So it has been very interesting to see the shift that both South Africa has decided that food production is cool, and Africa has decided that organic farming is part of our tradition. It's part of what our grandmothers and our grandfathers taught us. And we need to go back to understanding traditional knowledge, but we need to bring science into it. I'm a soil scientist, and I want to see the science as well as the production. So we need to marry the practical and the scientific side to bring about food security.
Yeah, I love you bringing up the narrative of the tension between your father and your mother, because majority of us that grew up on the continent, we possibly experience a challenge. And it just appears to me that part of the reservation expressed by your father was mainly because farmers were not really rich people, and they possibly were not highly regarded after the post-colonial era, after the independence struggle on the continent of Africa. Well, you did mention something which we are going to get to in the peak of the discussion today. You alluded to the issue of soil, marrying the science with the traditional knowledge in order to reposition organic farming. And it does appear to me that one of the controversial issues surrounding the question of organic farming and the food security discourse is whether the soils in Africa are actually appropriate for organic farming as a mechanism for addressing food insecurity. I want you to be reflecting on this as we shall come back to this conversation in the course of our discussion today. Professor Azim Khalid, growing up, I like to choose this opening conversation a little bit different. Did you experience hunger? And if you did not experience hunger personally, did you see people around you experience hunger? And thinking about that, what did you think would have been the solution to hunger? Agriculture being done differently, or relying on conventional farming systems?
Thank you. Thank you very much for those interesting and pertinent questions. Actually, personally, I didn't experience hunger, but from my point of view, my parents and grandparents, they did experience hunger for several years at times. And there were, how to say, kind of 20 years, every 20 years, there is rain scarcity. There's a problem in irrigation, a problem in available water for irrigation, and there was problem of hunger, by the way, because Morocco at those times was not very oriented to export. And also the quality of farmers was mainly, in majority was small farmers, and that was family farming actually. And Morocco, as you know, is oriented to agriculture more than industry and services in those times. I'm talking about 60, 70 years ago. But actually, nowadays, I can say that poverty and hunger problem, it doesn't exist actually in Morocco, because now there is a very good shift in agriculture system, and it started in 1985 when agriculture started to be developed. And for monoculture, I'm not talking about organic. I'm talking about conventional in its broader way. Things start to be industrialized and export oriented. But you know, in every country, when you have an improvement of agricultural practices for export or for massive production, there is small farmers that they are benefiting from this exponential growth of agricultural production, And the problem of poverty and the problem of hunger is not related. Actually, there is a decrease in those kind of problems. We start to feed ourselves. Small farmers start to use mechanization, start to use fertilizers, start to use pesticides, and there is an increase in problem increase in the production system. But when we see that after those 30 years of massive production oriented to export, now we realize that we have to change our way of thinking. We start to see the impact of the environment, and actually His Majesty King Mohammed VI has implemented a strategy for environmental improvement in Morocco, along with the improvement of agricultural system strategy from the Green Moroccan Plan to Green Generation, actually. And we see that we are self-sufficient in most of main products, meat, red meat and white meat, and also eggs, milk, and fruit and vegetables. We don't have any problem with this, but maybe I can come later with some data that I can show to my colleagues. And what I can say also that this Moroccan strategy has relied also on the human development along with the agricultural development. There's also two pillars. Agricultural development can't be developed without the human resource, without the farmers itself. I'm talking about small farmers rather than big farmers and export-oriented farmers.
Thank you so much. And I like to take it off from there, because you did mention the transition from traditional agriculture to a more industrialized agriculture by introducing agricultural machinery into the agricultural production systems in Morocco. And it does appear that for the most part, that seems to what different African governments seems to be pursuing as their policy response to transforming how agriculture is done on the continent. But at the same time, the puzzle remains that agriculture in Africa is still largely smallholders oriented, and that the majority of the farmers still rely on the use of labor-intensive farming systems. And with majority of the policymakers and those that are responsible for addressing problem of development on the continent, the political leadership, they still believe there is a need to shift away from agriculture that is labor-intensive to a more mechanized agriculture, despite the many controversial issues surrounding the environmental implication of that, and also the suitability of African soil to intensive mechanization. And organic agriculture seems to be saying that we can feed the people, address the pervasive problem of food insecurity on the continent by leveraging organic farming. And some of the concerning issue about organic farming is about the issue of labor. Labor needed in organic farming is said to be on the high side. Not only that, another issue relating to labor is about the issue of labor cost. Because just like Professor Raymond, many people of this current generation, they are not willing to work on the farm because they need immediate cash. And not only about that, there's also a decrease in labor availability in agriculture. Professor Meludu Nkiru, if organic agriculture is going to be a response to the food insecurity challenge on the continent of Africa, how is organic farming going to address this problem of labor question? And what does this problem of labor need in agriculture, high labor need in organic agriculture, high labor cost in organic agriculture, and continued decrease in labor availability, what does that imply for the potential of organic agriculture to help address the crisis of food insecurity on the continent? Over to you, Professor Meludu.
Yeah, thank you very much. We know what is food security. We also need to understand the concept of food security for us to be able to place organic agriculture in the context. The food security we talk about is having food available, accessibility, food utilization, and then safety and adequacy. When you talk about these five areas, then you know that you're having food security. And so it means that if the issue of safety is not captured, then means that we don't have food security. And so organic agriculture talks about safety, safety in food preparation. And I know that organic agriculture can, assist Africa to be able to achieve food security. Like I told you when we started, we were focusing on the small scale farmers, and then we were producing, and they were not using inorganic fertilizers, inorganic inputs to produce at that time. It's more of traditional because they are small scale farmers. And they were producing, like I told you, we used to have yam bands and groundnut pyramids. And then the focus was on cash crop, cocoa, we have groundnuts, and then cassava. We don't need we don't need fertilizer for cassava, and cassava would do well. And so they don't even have money for them to be able to buy this, what do you call it, inorganic fertilizers. And it doesn't even get to the small scale farmers. And they are the key producers, I know, in Nigeria, and I'm sure it's like that in most of African countries. So I feel that if you focus on organic agriculture, if you broadcast organic agriculture, it will help. Even though organic agriculture has an issue of being labor intensive, and then the cost of labor, especially for weeding and the rest of it. But then it depends on what you have. The quantity you have will also be looked at. How much yield do you have? And then that will be calculated in the what you want to, how you want to sell it, and the profit you made eventually. So there are ways of taking care of labor in organic production system, and I think uh, those activities, those ways should be tackled. Agriculture is no longer looked at as what they call it, just what you do. It is a business, and so all what it entails to do a business must be captured in organic agriculture for organic agriculture to be able to feed the world. And then the issue of labor and cost intensive production will be captured.
Yeah, thank you for your response, Professor Meludu. We come back to this issue on agriculture as a business. As something, is this something that is really compatible with the philosophy of organic farming? Because when you go back to the nuances of the prices at the call of conventional farming, it also appears to me that it builds on this conception of agriculture as a business, without meaning that you can consume your productive capital. In this case, for farmer, the main productive capital are the soils. And that is why they always look for how do we get the best out of the soil by using more input without creating more problem for the ecosystem. But before we get into this very important discourse about agriculture as a business, would that lead to the conventionalization of organic farming? And if it does, why is organic farming being pitched as a replacement, as an alternative to the conventional farming system? Before we get to this question, Professor Raymond, I'd like to hear your thoughts about the issue of labor need in organic farming and how these may be an encumbrance, a constraint to organic agriculture playing a powerful role in addressing the pervasive and growing hunger and food insecurity problem on the continent.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think there are three aspects to this. The first is the aspect of mechanization. You know, some people assume that organic farming doesn't like mechanization, but that is not true. You know, we have some small-scale organic farmers who may do it we have some who may use animals, but we have some large-scale organic farmers who use big tractors and mechanized compost-making procedures. Where I did my apprenticeship in Australia in the 1970s, those farmers were all mechanized farmers with big tractors, and the compost was done with front-end loaders and compost spreaders. So I think we should be very clear that organic farming is not against mechanization. Organic farming can be done in a small scale or on a large scale. The question is, are we going to look after our soil to make the soil healthy? So then I think the second part of the question, it's very often said by many conventional agronomists that, oh, organic farming can't match the yields of conventional farming. And that is simply not true. I've spent the last 10 years doing the Mandela long-term trials at the Nelson Mandela University. We compared organic farming and conventional farming systems, and that's published in my book, which is freely available for download. There are 6 chapters about the actual trials. And what we found is that organic farming can enliven the soil if you use compost and you use rotational cropping. It can deal with the pest problems as long as you use integrated pest management. But the one thing that organic farming has to be very careful about is many of our soils in Africa have not got enough available phosphate. And if the available phosphate is short, then of course your crops are not going to grow well. So we have to bring together soil biology, soil physics, and soil chemistry. And if we understand soil chemistry, we will be understanding that we need to shift the acidity, we need to deal with soil acidity, and we may need lime. The organic matter will also help with the acidity. But if we don't deal with shortage of available phosphate, we are not going to compare in yields. So there's no problem using rock phosphate in organic agriculture, but obviously it's an input and it costs money and it's not very available to many small farmers. But we have found that we have to use, in our part of the world, we have to help the farmers to start off with a little bit of rock phosphate to get the available phosphate up to the kind of level where we can close the yield gap. Providing we do that, providing our crop rotation is there, providing the compost is there, and the pest and disease control, we can compete. Especially in dry years, the organic will out-yield the conventional. So people who say organic farming cannot feed the world, they are just not looking at the science. Unfortunately, many people are trying to sell products. They want to sell their fertilizer, they want to sell their poisons, they want to sell their genetically modified seed, and they're not thinking about the needs of the small-scale farmers who can't afford these things. So I would like to be able to say we can do it with very little external input, but except for the phosphate, we can do it with very little external input, but we need to make sure the phosphate is right. We need to get the soil acidity right. We need to get the soil organic matter right. But the third aspect, so the one thing we can mechanize, we can get up to scale. The second, with soil chemistry, we can get our yields up. But the third thing is that we really need to understand the importance of nutrition. And if I, as a farmer, I farmed for 20 years as a dairy farmer, and then I trained farmers, and then I became a professor and got into research and policy. The more you look at the nutrition of the crops that are produced by industrial agriculture, the more you see that we are not nourishing people properly with chemical products. We've got more and more diabetes, we've got more and more obesity, and the problem is that the farmers who are growing industrial crops, those crops are then also processed. So partly it's the way they're grown and partly it's the way they're processed. But we find, you would think that in America and in Europe that health should be getting better. But look at obesity in America. Look at the cancers. Look at the heart disease. Look at diabetes. Diabetes is becoming a massive pandemic because the quality of the food is no longer the way it used to be. Our grandmothers will tell us when we grew our vegetables and we harvested them fresh, we didn't have all these sugar diseases and these obesity diseases. So I think these three aspects have to be taken together. On the one hand, we can scale up, we can mechanize, no problem. We can get big or small scale farming. The second thing, we have to look at the science to get the phosphate right if we want to close the yield gap. The third thing is that we really have to understand that organic food is much more nourishing than conventional food. And if you want to see the science of that, you just go to Organic ePrints and look at Professor Denis Lairon, Lairon. Professor Denis Lairon is a French scientist. He's just followed 140,000 French people for a 5-year nutritional study. If you go to Organic ePrints, you can see how those who have no food in their diet have got much more obesity, much more cancer, much more diabetes. Those who have 40 or 60 or 70% organic in their diet, the levels of those diseases and the levels in particular of cancers, of lymphomas, which are very dependent on exposure to chemicals, those cancers are much lower. So the food quality is better, the yields can be the same, and the scale can be done quite happily.
Yeah, thank you so much for this very detailed response. And one of the things I really want us to actually dive into in the course of this conversation is the claim that organic farming leads to a more healthier population, because there are some scientific evidence too in the literature that are suggesting that we cannot necessarily impute causality to a healthier population based on the consumption of organic produce, because there are many confounding factors that possibly needs to be accounted for this causality to be authoritatively implicated. But I still want us to stay focused on this question of labor, and I'll be coming to Professor Azim Khalid. In the response of Professor Raymond, he mentioned that organic farming is not the first to mechanization. And at the call of conventional farming system is mechanization, which at a highly intensive scale leads to the concept of industrial agriculture. And with that meaning that with mechanization, you can do more and more and more hectares of land. And a problematic issue in relation to organic farming becomes the issue of how do you incorporate the agroecological principle at the center of organic farming when you actually scale up. Because we've experienced that in the United States, whereby some organic farms are operating at a massive scale. But at the end of the day, research has shown that they may not necessarily be different from conventional farming system because of the impracticality of staying true to the agroecological principles at the core of organic farming. As you reflect on the question of labor, drawing on your experience in Morocco, what do you think the alternative should be? Should it be that we mechanize organic farming and lose the value of organic farming, or what makes it to be distinct? Or we do organic farming on a small scale and figure out alternative ways of addressing the problem of labor in organic farming? And in responding to this question, would like you to share how you people have been navigating this in Morocco. Thank you, Dr. Azim Khalid.
Thank you very much. I should say that when we talk about mechanization, it doesn't seem to me that mechanization is closely related to conventional farming, because it's also used by organic farmers. And let me say that we have to make distinction between the intensity level of agricultural practices, because if we are talking about rain-fed cropping system such as grain, legumes, cereals, maize, and so on, we are talking about very big land area, and those very big farms and area couldn't be worked by labor force, actually by hand. So we used mechanization as it seems to be the obvious way of working too much expanded farms and the expanded lands. But labor work is closely related to intensive agricultural practices such as fruits, and vegetables. I'm talking about vegetables because I'm living in the countryside in the south of in the center of Morocco. I'm saying that in Agadir Souss-Massa region, which is known for its tomato production and export to Europe, and we use too much labor force to produce vegetables and the greenhouses and open fields. And without those, we cannot mechanize this, and we cannot turn robots to do the work of labor force, because it's very cheap to hire labor force than to do it mechanically. I can say that agriculture is contributing to stabilize an important part of the population in agriculture in countryside, where we have agricultural activity intensive and horticulture practices and horticultural farms in general. Then we have a stable labor work, and we have a stable population working them and living. I'm not saying that they are living in heaven, but actually they are living, and they can they are above the poverty, and they are secure in terms of food security. I just want to say a point related to my first intervention is that Morocco is extremely vulnerable to global prices volatility, actually, in large parts due to its dependence on food imports. I'm talking about green legumes. This alone does make the country food insecure. That said, rising food prices constitute a prominent threat to the health and well-being of Moroccan households, in poor particularly, who spend up to 70% of their incomes on food. This is we have to take a deep insight on those data, because if the level of prices increase outside Morocco, then we have a problem. So I'm coming back to the labor force and the relation between labor force mechanization and organic agriculture. What I can say that organic agriculture actually concern only small farmers, and we have in Morocco more than 95% of farms are small. So the export and the intensive production concern only 5%. So the majority of agricultural system in Morocco is mainly small farmers, family farming, mountain farming. And this is what ensure to us this food security. And I can say that we are related not to agroecological principles, but we did this between when our parents and grandparents are used to farm, they used only agroecological practices, and now organic farming is organic farming is agroecology plus certification, is certified agroecosystem. So when we talk about organic, then we have to talk about regulation, market data management, and quality management system, and so on. But it relies on agroecological principles who are made and practices by farmers, actually. I appreciated the intervention of our colleague, Dr. Raymond, about soil fertility and compost and available phosphorus problem. And I can say that farmers in Morocco always use manure to fertilize and to amend their soil every year before starting his cropping system. So this is, and wherever you go in Morocco, they use manure. And we can say that they don't want, small farmers don't want to use pesticides anymore. Actually, we have restricting. Yesterday, I received a communication from the Ministry of Agriculture that are trying now to restrict and to forbid and to eliminate all the highly toxic pesticides. They are banning it from the market in Morocco, and this is a good step forward, agroecological and organic farming.
So thank you so much for your response, drawing on the Moroccan experience. And if I may recall, when I did my doctoral dissertation, I worked with organic farmers in Nigeria. And those of them that are first to adopt in organic farming or that were hesitant to adopt organic farming, they did bring up the issue of they may have some concerns with chemicals, but they were also concerned about the amount of labor in organic work because they felt that they have a lot of responsibilities to attend to. They got to pay their bills, they got to pay for the education of their children, and the fact that the use of chemical, despite the potential assets, enables them to do that better compared to organic farming. And that is one thing we still come back to. The radio itself, they don't like something, but you may continue to do that thing because it's paying the bills. It's assisting you to attend to some immediate needs. However, I'll go back to what Professor Raymond said and draw in Professor Meludu into this issue. Professor Raymond spoke extensively about the necessity to bridge the knowledge aspects that may be constraining the realization of the optimum productivity potential in organic farming system. He spoke about the need to deploy systematically planned out crop rotational system to support organic farmers. And he also spoke about the necessity of tending to the issue of soil acidity. Likewise, he spoke about the necessity of building the capacity of farmers to know how to manage their soil organic matter and as well issues related to soil chemistry. My understanding of all these very important issues is that they implicate the fact that organic farming is knowledge intensive. And when you look at the funding that is available to doing agricultural research in African university, the funding seems to be abysmally low. And of this abysmally low funding availability to doing agricultural research in Africa university, a huge proportion of the available funding seems to go to conventional farming systems. And this raises the question. And there's the third dimension to this, which is the issue of availability of scholar practitioners, faculty members that are doing the research and taking the research to farmer, translating those research to farm level use. There seems not to be enough funding support. If organic farming is knowledge intensive, and we have all these funding related problems, how do you think this funding problem might be a constraining factor to the potentials of organic agriculture in assisting us to address the problem of food insecurity on the continent of Africa?
Yes, I know that organic agriculture will feed the world if we take it very seriously. And that is why I'm not a soil chemist, but that is why we talk about stakeholder issue, collaboration in research, bringing everybody on board for us to be able to make this impact. The information is not yet widespread. So we need to continue to broadcast, to preach about the benefits of organic agriculture. Organic agriculture supports an enhanced ecological sound system of food production. There is no two ways about that. And we know that we have crop pest and disease resilience in organic agriculture. Organic agriculture, like somebody have mentioned, that it has a higher nutritional or organic produce, a higher nutritional value. And therefore, the food we eat are free of blemishes, they are free of contamination. And so we'll be healthier by the time we eat organic foods. This must be, taken to the grassroots. Everybody must know about it. We keep on talking about labor. Why we are noticing labor, especially now in Nigeria, is that many people, especially the younger ones, they are moving out to the cities looking for greener pasture, looking for white-collar job. And when you see them in the city, what are they doing? They're not really doing much. Some of them sleep under the bridge. Instead of them to be, in the farm, to be rendering helping hands, we need to talk about organic agriculture as a family farm, where all hands must be on deck to promote it and people to be able to make a high premium. Organic agriculture gives high premium, we know about it, and so people need to be educated. You talked about capacity building. So is providing information, disseminating information about organic agriculture, about the benefits of organic agriculture, and what holds better than the conventional agriculture. Yes, like I mentioned before, that even the fertilizer, the inorganic fertilizer, the send, it doesn't get to this farmer, the small scale farmers. And we know that these are in majority the small scale farmers. But then the organic agriculture practitioners of Nigeria have been building capacity of people on the principles and practices of organic agriculture. And so by the time this is done frequently, many people will get to know what organic agriculture is and be able to want to key in to join, in this crusade of organic agriculture. We need to talk about it. There should be a policy on organic agriculture. There should be a Ministry of Organic Agriculture, and then we try to liaise with the government to talk about funding of organic agriculture. The funding in agriculture is targeted mostly on unconventional agriculture. So this must be also utilized in organic agriculture for organic agriculture to lead to feed the world. We need to advocate for that. We need to lobby if it's anything like that. So the practitioners of organic agriculture should try to come together to brainstorm to be able to make more impact as regards to attracting funds from the government, from donor agencies, and then be able to, because once you tell people about what they are eating, the how healthy or unhealthy, they should be able to key in. I'm sure they will respond to it. So we talk about pollution. Organic agriculture will not pollute the biodiversity. It helps to enhance biodiversity. There is no hazard in groundwater by the time we use organic inputs to be able to, to produce. And again, the more people should also key into how to produce some of these pesticides for organic agriculture, and then look at the traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge. They are there. We talked about science and traditional knowledge. It's very important. So we see how we can marry them together, to be able to get something from the traditional knowledge and then use it to be able to support organic agriculture. There are so many of them, that are being practiced now. The use of neem and then, other ones. So we need to use a collaborative approach. The stakeholders must be involved, just like we are doing now. We do more of it, and to be able to get more people to understand what organic agriculture is all about, and also to build capacity of people, both consumers and then the researchers and then the farmers on organic agriculture.
Yes, so thank you so much, Professor Nkiru Meludu, for emphasizing the need to do more collaborative research, which, based on my understanding, working in this space, is even more expensive to do. because it requires more logistical commitment, and it requires a lot of financing to actually do collaborative research. Because for every collaborative research, we also need to take into account the fact that agriculture has placed specific, without meaning that agricultural findings, if at all they may be replicated, need to be adapted into their various places of use. And adaptation is another level of research because you have to get it right before it can actually produce the desired result. And that means that doing collaborative research in the aspects of organic farming may mean more money. And now we are talking of underfunded universities, skewed commitment of finances to organic farming. And I can see a lot of people contributing to this issue in the chat, with some people requesting for agricultural protectionism and the deployment of subsidy to support the organic farming system, just like they did in Tunisia and to some extent in Morocco. So back to this issue of funding as an imperative to position in organic farming, deliver on its potential of helping to contribute to addressing the problem of food insecurity in Africa. Professor Raymond, would you like to share your opinion on what your exponent of organic farming needs to be doing differently to address this problem of funding limitation?
Again, thanks for the question. It's a really important question. There's been some discussion in the chat as well saying, why is it that organic is not getting the support? And part of the problem is that in conventional, there are people who are selling a product and they're making money out of that. So obviously they have an incentive to sell their product. And whereas in organic, it's local resources that are being used, it's benefiting the farmers and it's benefiting the community, the consumers, but there's not some big agribusiness person making a lot of money out of it. So I think that what is really important is to realize that, I've just completed a study for the African Union on mainstreaming ecological organic agriculture. And I looked at all 55 countries in Africa, my team did, and we found that the actual budget of agricultural departments, if you take the average right over Africa, 65% of the budgets of agriculture are spent on what's called farm input subsidy programs. I don't know if Prof. Peter could put up that map that I sent him, because that can illustrate it quite well. The problem that we have at the moment is that the money goes into farm input subsidy programs. And what does that do? That gives farmers cheap fertilizer, it gives them cheap chemicals. It doesn't make them better farmers, no way, because they are just being given some inputs. In fact, I say that there are two scenarios. The one scenario is Africa is a basket case. And if we believe that Africa is a basket case, then we are going to give people subsidies, because we're going to say, oh, those farmers can't produce properly. And we give them subsidy in the hope they will produce something. But I don't believe in that scenario. I believe in Africa's rising scenario. And that means we have to build our capacity. We have to use the women and the men of Africa, the young people. We have to help them to meet with the market, to produce what the market wants, to manage their quality. And if we do that, if we can actually get the production in such a way that the market and the resources and the farmers are put together, then I think we will find something that is really producing a healthy product. But what we've done, it's such a pity we lost Dr. Juma, because the East Africans are doing some fantastic work. The BioVision Africa Trust in Kenya has been working with the African Union, and the African Union said that we must have ecological organic agriculture. We should be supporting it. The African Union has been pushing, saying we must not only support organic farming, we must also support the other, but we should also be, at the moment, we're exploiting organic farmers. We are spending so much money on input subsidies. We should be spending some of that money on capacity building and on market development and quality management. And that's where that map would be very useful to show, because at the moment, you can see there are only 4 countries in Africa that are really doing a good job, that are advanced ecological organic agricultural countries, and that is Morocco, Tunisia, Uganda, and Madagascar. And those 4 countries have really done a great job Morocco and Tunisia have been leaders for many years, and I think we've got a lot to learn from Morocco and Tunisia. But the Ugandans have just passed their policy, and Uganda is now getting some government support at last for the organic farmers. And Madagascar, they complained to me. They said, you put us as number 2 instead of number 1. We now have an organic policy, and we have a national organic agricultural movement. We have standards. And so we were able to promote them to number 1. So we have Uganda, Madagascar, Morocco, and Tunisia as advanced ecological organic agricultural countries. Then we have about 10 which are active, which are doing quite well, but are only getting very small support from government, like Egypt and Tanzania and some of the West African countries as well. And then many countries like South Africa. You know, I sit on the board of the South African Organic Sector Organization. I also sit on the board of our Agricultural Research Council. And I've been complaining very loudly. I've been saying, why is the government not supporting organic farmers? And they've said, the Minister of Agriculture has said, you are right, we need to start supporting organic agriculture. We need to start supporting organic research. So I think we're beginning to see a shift there that, you know, about a quarter of the countries in Africa are just beginning to get some government support. And that is quite exciting. But there are nearly half of the countries that either have no government support and just a little bit of export, or nothing happening at all. And I put those type 4 and type 5. And it's very disappointing that those countries are not really supporting their small-scale farmers at all, and they're not supporting the nutrition of their people, because they are only growing chemical food and importing a lot of food. So I think that you raised 2 questions, the question of funding and the question of collaboration. I think the collaboration is beginning to be very exciting. There's a lot of research going on in Egypt. Tunisia is doing something. I would hope that Morocco will be jumping. It's great to see my sister in Nigeria. There's a lot happening in Nigeria with research. The Network of Organic Agricultural Research in Africa, Prof, my friend Benga, Olu Benga at the University of Nigeria, he's doing wonderful work there. And he really has done a lot to get people together and to get the government involved. And here in South Africa, we're beginning to wake up, but we're way behind. We've got so much to learn from East Africa and West Africa, North Africa. And here we are with all our wonderful technology, but we are fast asleep. So I think we have a long way to go, but I think we have a lot of inspiration to follow. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you so much, Professor Raymond. Professor Khalid, Azim Khalid, before you chime in, one thing I like to say about the funding issue is that it seems to fall at the intersection of the conflictual nature of agricultural spaces across the world. Conflictual in the sense that we have a lot of conflict of interest playing out in the agricultural sector. And it becomes very important in Africa because many of the governments, they are facing the problem of how to feed their people. Without meaning that they want immediate results. And organic farming may not necessarily produce immediate results based on what we know for some reasons, including biophysical consideration of the existing soil conditions in the continent. It takes time to build soil organic matter, and it takes time to achieve that optimum potential in terms of feeding the organic farming system. So without meaning that there's an advantage for those people that are saying the multinational, those money back, we are going to support you in the aspect of providing the input, this and this, just give farmer more chemicals. Without meaning that governments in Africa may be more inclined to embracing the prayer coming from this money back. How do we navigate this crisis, this tension, to create an agenda that actually produces more money for the funding of research to support organic farming in Africa so that it can be better positioned to address the problem of food insecurity? And reflecting over that, Professor Azim Khalid, I also want you to think about the aspect of how do we do research that actually benefits farmers? Because you can do research for publication, which seems to be the trend in most African countries. Now, research that will benefit farmers. How do we actually do this and get money to do that?
Yes, lot of questions actually, and a lot of points to raise. Yes, a conflict existed several years ago, and I can say that organic farming started in Morocco since 1986, actually. And there were two attempts of having a national regulation of organic farming, one in 1994 and the other one in 2003, as I could remember. And both of those attempts were crushed down because of the lobbying of chemicals inside the government and inside the Ministry of Agriculture. And what I can say that it's a pity that the natural country with the second highest endemic resource, endemic species in the world is Morocco, after Turkey, is having those kind of trouble and couldn't get his own regulation. And now what we can say that finally we got this regulation in 2013, and we were the second country in Africa having its own regulation on organic farming after Tunisia. The third one was Egypt, as I could remember, and following the other countries from Africa. That's a good shift. That's a good movement of organic farming, actually. And having this conflict of interest from pesticide and fertilizer companies and so on is actually happening now. Actually, it's not finished yet. We continue to see big farmers. I'm talking about big farmers, hell mergers, as I can say, big companies buying small companies of innovative organic inputs, biofertilizer and biopesticide. They are buying it and stopping them from working, stopping them from developing the products, just to, how to say, to look for the exact moment to let them go and send their products for the benefit of those big companies. And maybe you have the same situation in other African countries, but in Morocco, yes. Once we have a good product, biofertilizer, biopesticide doing good in the market, pop, it's bought by a big company and they stop from working until they want. So this is a phase of the conflict of interest between big companies and small organic companies of organic inputs. Organic seeds. This is another phase of the problem. Import of organic seeds is very difficult in Morocco, and I'm coming to research the research question. But let me say that now we have how to say, good willings, a good movement of organic actors that are starting to look for solutions, innovative solutions. Lack of support is another problem, and even in Morocco we have those kind of problems. Hopefully we have a support, a subsidy from the government to organic agriculture. Actually, we have 70% of certification cost covered by subsidy for farmers above 5 hectares, and the 90% of certification costs is supported by the government for farmers who have less than 5 hectares, small farmers and big farmers, as I can say. And now I'm working with the Crédit Agricole du Maroc, which is a bank, agricultural bank, actually in Morocco, working on a subsidy with the funding of AFD, which is the French Agency of Development, working on a subsidy to promote collective certification process, PGS, participatory guarantee system, and organic certified. We're talking about 1,000 euros for each hectare certified under PGS and organic PGS. This is a good thing. Actually, It's only for 100 hectares, but it's a pilot trial, and we hope that it will succeed and can be mainstreamed along Morocco. Coming back to collaborative research and funding for it, what I can say, I'm seeing myself from Dr. Raymond in university struggling to look for funds, and actually it's the same case in Morocco. But I hope that we have this green generation plan from 2020 to 2030, and the government puts a lot of money in developing organic agriculture, because we have to attain 100,000 hectares certified cropping, organic cropped area, certified organic cropped area, and we have to achieve 500,000 hectares of natural collected products, organic products, and exports and labor work and so on. This is a very big deal for Moroccan government to attain and achieve those objectives. And concerning research, now the Moroccan government, unfortunately, it was those last months. There was 2 months of elections, political elections, and the activity was stopped a little bit, but now it started to come back. We were thinking last year to create a national center of organic farming in Morocco that will be concerning development of organic agriculture in Morocco, with a territorial approach, with the implication of the organic movement in Morocco, farmers, exporters, and processors. We have a very important and pertinent research program on fertilization, genetic resources, and plant protection, plant production, animal husbandry, beekeeping, and so on. And also waste management research program, which I think that it's, how to say, it's a proactive research program and multidisciplinary one. One of the method that from which we can fund research is that, and I think it's a positive thing in the agricultural strategy in Morocco, is that the government is contracting the organic movement. It's not contracting organic movement alone, but it's the same in the other value chain. I'm talking about olives, value chain of olives, value chain of dates, value chain of argan, value chain of milk production, value chain of fruit production, value chain of every sector. We are working about value chains which are vertical. And actually, organic, it's not vertical, it's horizontal, because it concerns all the other value chain production, crop production, and animal production. And the government is contracting every responsible and every movement of every value chain. Value chain represented by a federation. This is one of the positive thing that we had from the Green Moroccan Plan, is that every value chain is represented by one federation, and this federation is contracting the government to have support, to have funding, to develop all the aspects related to this value chain. And organic agriculture was one of them in the last Green Moroccan Plan. I'm talking about 2010 and 2019. And now research development of the organic value chain in Morocco could be funded by all the money that we can extract it from the export. We should tax the export with a little bit percentage. I'm talking about cents in every kilogram exported, and that generates a lot of money to fund research, to fund development, to fund extension, to fund a lot of things. We're talking about exports, we're talking about billions of dirhams and millions of euros. So if we extract a percentage of cents from those kilograms exported, then we can fund, and also we can fund the research and all the aspects related to organic development in Morocco. Let me add one thing again, is that there is, I made a comparison between organic and conventional farming in Morocco, and I found that there is absurd to tax import of organic inputs from outside, from abroad, and de-tax all the pesticides that are imported to Morocco. Pesticides are not taxed, and they are used a lot in Morocco, and organic ones are taxed with a VAT of 20%, which is, I think, it's absurd. Then we have to look and to fight to eliminate these taxes from all organic accepted and authorized inputs in Morocco. And maybe I think that research is going to do good things. Just to respond to my colleague Raymond in one questions raised on the available phosphorus, I worked on the phosphate sludge. The phosphate sludge is the byproduct of phosphorus production, chemical one, and I made a compost with organic wastes, and this compost contains at least 7% of phosphorus, with 20% available phosphorus for the first year. This is one of the good things of research on organic agriculture.
Thank you so much, Professor Azim Khalid, for your response. And I'd like to draw your attention of those life that there is a link to the book published by Professor Raymond that you can access and download for free on the internet. Again, the title of the book is Organic Agriculture. You can find it on the link in the chat box. And I also like to mention that there have been some interesting conversation going on in the chat box. And one of these is alluding to the fact that young people are getting excited about large-scale farming, agribusiness, which is largely promoted by exponents of conventional farming systems. And many major personalities, according to Amatoyin, are getting involved in large-scale farming, and young people may be enticed by the potential profit, without meaning that organic really needs to be profitable to attract this set of young population. And there is another contribution by Eva Pinar, and she is of the opinion that a lot of developed countries are not using organic approaches. She was wondering, why is this the case? There's going to be a series that's going to be discussing this. I want to assure you, Eva. And Eva also mentioned on the need for government policy in supporting the organic farming sector. And she was wondering, why is it that there is not enough government support, as been argued by all of you, our guest speaker, in today's series of the controversies and opportunity surrounding the leveraging of organic farming to address food insecurity on the continent. And it's from here that I'm going to move back to Professor Nkiru Meludu on this issue that is very, very important. I think conversation have gone along this direction, alluding to the fact that organic food might actually be more expensive than conventionally grown food. And we need to put this in context of the food consuming public on the continent. Majority of them are living in a state of poverty, and they are considered to be food insecure to various extents. If organic farming is going to address the problem of food insecurity, and if affordability is a component of how we measure food insecurity, how do you respond to this? Is that not a disincentive to African governments giving more support to organic farming?
Yeah, I don't think so, because yes, organic agriculture attracts higher premium because it's a little bit more expensive. Not all the time. Like I said initially, it depends on what you put in. You know, if you do a good market recording, a good farming recording, and then it depends on what you put in, and then you'll be able to, fix your price. So it all depends on that. So it's sometimes you can even have almost the same price, with the conventional one. But then the most important thing is, like food security is not just about availability, affordability. The issue of safety, and then adequacy, nutrition we talked about, they are very key. You know, even if it's very little food that you eat, but it has the correct nutrients in it, and then you have it's safe for you to eat, that you'll be healthy the next day. I mean, you go for it and then have that small quantity. So the organic agriculture, even though it has not spread, but then, what we are doing here is also majority of farmers are doing organic agriculture by default. It's just one or two things that they need to, that we need to highlight about. So it's not, we can't say because of that there is a minus for organic agriculture. No. And then in Nigeria, in 2015, we had what is called agricultural transformation agenda. In this agenda, the youths were brought in, and that was when organic agriculture was meant to be a business. And you see that youths are getting interested. It opened their eyes. Nobody need to call them. And now that we have started talking about organic agriculture in Nigeria, they are also getting interested. But so by the time we do a real, broadcast about it, a real, an extensive training about it, creating awareness, I'm sure that the youth will want to also move into this. So it requires, like I said, capacity building, creating of awareness. And I'm happy Professor Raymond mentioned Adeoluwa. Adeoluwa is one of the key people in organic agriculture in Nigeria. In fact, in 2012, 2010, the other people, but he has been really promoting organic agriculture in Nigeria as the secretary of NOAN, the then president then, and then the new president we have. They are all working, and we work with them. So they have followers now, but then we have not really gotten to where we want to be. Before then, it was organic agriculture was nowhere to be, talked about. But then they started in the West, and now it has spread all over the country. We have chapters in most of the states in the country. So it's moving, and they try to organize training from time to time. Now in November, in the next 2 weeks, we are going to have what we call NOABS. At NOABS is the fifth outing, and there is National Organic Business Summit. And in this business summit, important people are, invited. We have the civil rights people, the policy makers, the government officials, environmentalists, people in organic agriculture. So many people. It's a business summit. And you see people come to showcase what they have done, in organic agriculture. So they have really been creating awareness on that. So we have our national organic agriculture organization. And then we also have the West Africa, the African one, which is NOARA. He also is the coordinator of that, where research is on organic agriculture. So, and the organic agriculture, to me, it will go. We are just starting. Yes, people are talking about certification, and some people are also have been trained as inspectors, certifying organic farms in Nigeria. Though it's expensive, and that's why we're talking about government, participation, government having the political will to be able to participate, to be able to make impact, having creating offices, desk offices in the Ministry of Agriculture, just like the way they, focus on conventional agriculture. They should also focus on organic agriculture for us to make great impact in Nigeria. If you don't want us to be talking about organic agriculture, because some people, once you mention organic agriculture, they are not there, So we can say sustainable agriculture. It's sustainable agriculture. We can use, language that we know that will project organic agriculture to the people for it to be accepted by all, and on and on and on. I've even forgotten what. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that we are having this discussion, and we'll
Yeah.
continue to promote organic agriculture in Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Meludu. And there's going to be a part of the series that is going to focus on framing organic agriculture, because you throw this language of sustainable agriculture. And I'm aware that there's a significant pushback from exponents of organic agriculture, that they rather want organic agriculture framed and pitched as ecological farming system, a form of ecological farming system, because sustainable agriculture means you're actually intensifying for more use of input in a more sustainable way. And which seems to not be the focal calling of organic agriculture. We'll come back to that. Professor Raymond, when a poor man goes to the market, what matters to the poor man is the disposable income at hand. How much how much he has in budget to buy food items. And that amount of money is severely limited by his earned income. And if organic food are more expensive than conventionally grown food, and if food affordability, discussed in relation to food availability and accessibility, is a condition, one of the conditions to attaining food security at the household level, what do you consider this aspect of organic agriculture being more expensive as a constraining factor to why it may play a prominent role addressing the problem of food insecurity on the continent of Africa?
Yeah, it's a very good point. And I think there are three aspects we have to look at in terms of what makes organic competitive or not competitive. The first thing is we need more research to be able to close the yield gap and raise yields. There's a huge amount of investment in conventional research, whereas the amount of organic research, in fact, my research was the first government-funded research in Southern Africa, and it only been going for the last 10 years. So we are not getting much support for research, and if the research was able to support the farmers, they would be able to raise their yields. The second thing is that what we call true cost accounting. If people are subsidizing chemical agriculture, and how are they subsidizing it? Chemical agriculture uses more water. It uses water inefficiently. How much of the water that is available in Africa is used in agriculture? It's a huge amount. In Southern Africa, 70% of the rainwater that is available for the water that can be used is used in agriculture, and it's used very inefficiently, partly because the soil doesn't hold the water and doesn't hold the nutrients. So you have the water getting washed out and you have the chemicals going into the rivers. So the true cost accounting says, well, what is the cost of those chemicals in the rivers? What is the cost of the water that is used? What is the real cost to health? Because if you are eating food and you're getting diabetes, and I'm eating food and I'm getting obese, somebody else is eating food with chemicals and getting cancer, the cost to the health systems of the country is enormous. And the cost of those health systems is absolutely important to bear in mind. And you can't say that this food is the same as that food. So I think the true cost accounting is really, really important part of things. But there is another aspect as well, which is that we are pushing agriculture. Now we have COVID making itself felt all over the world at the moment. And COVID is Mother Nature telling us two things. She's saying you are disrespecting the divine feminine, you're disrespecting the sacred feminine, and therefore I, Mother Earth, Mother Africa, I'm going to get rid of you people if you don't behave yourself properly. The other thing is the animals are telling us that you're not treating us well, and we're going to give you our diseases. If you put us in horrible little cages, we are going to give you our diseases, because there's no way to treat animals. And so you actually can't carry on with industrial agriculture, producing food which is sometimes not fit for human consumption, and which has the hidden cost to health, and which is basically then processed and denatured in such a way. We want African food sovereignty. We Africans have food that we like, and we don't want to have processed food and to have imported chicken wings and things like that forced on us. You know, the Americans are very good at forcing us in terms of their agriculture and saying, in South Africa, we were forced by the Americans to allow them to dump chicken wings on our community, and that meant that many chicken producers went out of business because of these cheap chicken wings being dumped on our economy. So you have a whole range of things, from the food quality to the fact that also if you have battery chickens and you buy a point of lay pullet, she's going to produce you an egg per day for 300 days. And that is partly because of her genetics, partly because of the feed. And if you want an open, a free-range egg, you're not going to get so many eggs. So in that case, yes, the yield is going to be less. The chicken that is free-range chicken is only going to produce 165 to 180 eggs in 300 days, whereas the battery chicken will produce 300. But what is the quality of that egg, and what is the quality of life for that chicken? What are the diseases? And you have to cut off the beak of that chicken because you're putting them in 5 in a cage and they peck each other. So is that the kind of agriculture we want in Africa, which is producing food that is not nutritious, which is producing food that is causing the animals to get diseases, and which is in things like COVID, which are giving us more and more problems around the world? So I think we have to begin to think, what kind of world do we want to give to our children? Are we wanting to actually seriously deal with climate change? Are we wanting to seriously deal with health? And if so, we have to move over to ecological organic agriculture. Otherwise, we will find that we don't have very much health in the future. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for your response. And we are gradually coming to a close of the program. And I'd like to hear the opinion of Dr. Hashim on this issue of organic farming, organically grown produce being more expensive than conventionally grown produce, and the implication of these for leveraging organic farming to address the problem of food insecurity on the continent. As you reflect on this, I also want you to reflect on this question that was raised by Professor Peter Pina in the chat box. He said he's curious to know about the political dimension regarding how organized organic farming, how organized are organic farmers as a player group or interest group, and how does this vary across different countries? And I think where it's intended, what he intends with this question is that he wants to know how you can leverage farmers' organization, farmer organized capacity, organic farmer organized capacity as a political prayer to address some of the constraining factors limiting the ability of organic farming to rise to addressing the problem of food insecurity. We've spoken about the issue of funding, and that requires significant political will and commitment on the part of the government. And in a democracy, you need to exert prayers sometimes to get many things done. And one of the ways you can actually induce the prayer is by asserting or leveraging the political values, the political worth of organic farmer. If they have huge population, and if they place a mandate as a precondition for electing people into power, that may be the desired game changer needed for organic farming to have the desired policy attention and funding attention on the continent. So in responding to the cost issue, I also want you to respond to how well organized are organic farmers and how could such a political power, if there is any, be leveraged to address some of the constraining factors affecting organic farming on the continent.
Is this question intended to me or?
Yeah.
I'm mute.
Yeah, to you, Dr.
Okay.
Azim Khalid.
Thank you. Actually, I think this is my point of view, my personal point of view. I think that subsidizing any value chain, which is organic or another value chain, is not a sustainable way to develop this value chain, whether organic or another one. This is not sustainable. And since we're talking about organic, then we have to think in a sustainable way. I think that open market subsidies is good, but at the beginning of the development, but opening the market with a clear view of the market, transparent market, can push the farmers to produce and sell. And I believe that we have to look where the money flows. Where the money flows can teach us a lot of things and make the consumers look for the clean and organic and ecological products, because it's a matter of health, national health, not only environmental one, but also national health. So if we think about the organic markets, then we have to look on the regulation side. If the organic market is regulated from the government, then we have more transparent market. But unfortunately, it's not the case in Morocco. I think it's in Europe, United States, and all developed countries, they have regulation on organic markets, and they have clear and transparent market. Then everything gets clear to be seen. But in Morocco, no, it's not the case for the moment. I think sometimes in the future there will be regulation of the markets and things will be more clearer. But I think that we have to be more careful about funding, about agribusiness, about everything which is related to market. I believe that only the consumer can regulate and can ask for organic and ecological products and make farmers aware about production. This is the only way and the sustainable way of creating workforce and creating farmers and creating also richness in the farming family. And this could be actually a point we didn't talk about is the impact of COVID-19 of organic products. I have been seeing during the pandemic and during the lockdown a huge demand of organic products. They want to increase their health status by looking for spirulina, by looking for organic honey, organic oils, and so on. The organic demands, the demands of organic products has been increasingly improved during the pandemic, during the 1 year and a half until this time, and only short value chain has been resistant to the lockdown, because farmers who have been producing and delivering their consumers directly have supported and they resisted to the lockdown, and they could make benefits. And that's why most of consumers, wealthy consumers, start to think about going back to rural areas and make some farms and produce their own farms and bring back the richness from cities to rural areas. I think this is a good shift and good impact of COVID-19 on organic food system. But we have to how to say this is I'm talking about Moroccan case. I don't know what's happening in the other countries, but maybe in most of African countries, pandemic has been a little bit negative to them, but they haven't been also attacked by the disease as the other developed countries, and this because they are less feed with chemical products and conventional products. This is it's not my area of expertise, but I think most of the discussion I had with Adelowe also from Nigeria, Victor Olwe from Nigeria, from others, other researcher in Tunisia, Egypt. I think that most of them during the pandemic they have experienced a high increase in organic product demand. A point I want to raise here is the extension service and the increasing of awareness of farmers to organic agriculture. We are working in a project which is known KCOA, the Knowledge Center of Organic Farming. Is an African project which is funded by GIZ from Germany, and it concerns all the hubs, African hubs, North, South, Eastern, Western, and Central Africa. And actually, we are trying to make a virtual data bank of organic practices and ecological practices to be shared with all farmers, all interested farmers. And the project has started 1.5 years ago, and maybe we will have an extension of other 3 years. Maybe I can give you more information if someone asks for them by email or by another mean of communication. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for raising the issue of the project that is being funded by GSA. I will follow up with you on this, and we'll be transitioning to the last question that I want all of you to reflect on. And I'm going to start with Professor Meludu Nkiru. There is a saying that, which is very popular within the organic arena, that for organic to be actually financially rewarding in Africa, it has to be export market oriented. And when we reflect deeply on the focus in organic farming around export market, there's a likelihood that doing so may lead to negative effect on the food security, domestic food security. Because what that may mean is that if you are producing for the export market, you may not necessarily be growing crops, food, or staples that are relevant to addressing domestic food insecurity. So the question is this: what model of organic farming is best suited for fostering domestic food security? Export market-oriented organic farming or domestically focus-oriented organic farming? You have 2 minutes to answer this question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think the focus should be on domestic and more of domestic and a little of export, because we also need the foreign exchange to be able to develop our country. So, and it means that we're going to have 2 types of certification, the PGS for the local one, and then the one for the third-party certification for the export. So higher percentage for domestic and, less percentage for export for us to be able to make that money. But all I'm saying is that in all this, what we need to do is to make sure that Africa is developing and we're having good health, and we're having high premium, high income, and we're having sustainable livelihood and sustainable life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Meludu Nkiru. Over to you, Professor Raymond, on this same question.
Oh, thank you. I think my sister in Nigeria has answered very adequately. And I think what we have seen in Africa is that very often the start of the organic sector is export driven, that people see the possibility of a quick profit and they grow some coffee and export it, or some bananas, whatever it may be. But what was very interesting is to see what happened in Uganda, where they started a couple of shops in Port Royal and in Kampala. And with their organic shops, they said that initially 90% of the product was sold to expatriates. So people from outside the country came and they said, oh, great, we can get organic. But then with a little bit of publicity, after about 6 months, it was mostly Ugandan people who were buying it. The same thing happened in Kenya, where the Kenya Museum in Nairobi publicized. They went on television. They said, you can get traditionally grown traditional crops. You can buy them. We are helping to distribute them. And very soon there were many people, but they said, why can't we get them in the supermarkets? And because the people had seen on television and the supermarkets had heard, within a few months, the supermarkets began to sell organically produced crops from local Kenyan farmers. And so I think we organic farmers, we have some work to do here as well. We've got to look at adding value to our crops and processing the crops in a healthy way. We have to look at publicizing, and we have to look at working with the health authorities at educating consumers about the importance of diet. So I think it's not enough for us just to complain and to say, oh, we are victims and people are not supporting us. As Dr. Azim said, it is not the right way to just subsidize the sector. It will never grow. We have to become strong. We have to be self-starters. We, as the organic sector, we have to publicize. We have to lobby for research. We have to be there making a noise about the importance of organics. And our consumers also need to make a noise to support us. And they're beginning to do that. I'm finding that the mothers of Africa are voting with their food dollars, and they're beginning to say, we want healthy food. We don't want food with chemicals in it. Thank you.
Thank you for your response, Professor Raymond. And Professor Azim Khalid, what is your thought on the model of organic farming that is best suited for fostering domestic food security on the continent of Africa? Is it export market oriented? Is it domestic market oriented, or a means of both?
Yes, since we are talking about organic agriculture is based on biodiversity. So I think that, yes, we can look for a model which is a mix of export-oriented and also domestic and national market-oriented. I can say that when we talk about local organic farming, I can say that from my experience, I've been a farmer of organic farming, vegetable production for 3 years. And I can say that organic products can be produced with less cost than conventional production. I experienced this in under greenhouse and open field. The production cost of organic is less than conventional one because we use less inputs, we produce less, but we sell with a premium price. We are economically efficient and environmentally efficient also. And this leads to think about the ecosystemic service. Organic farmers are giving a highly impressive ecosystemic service to the environment and to the government. It should be paid off. This service, ecosystemic service of organic farmers, should be paid off. They have to be paid to farmers to increase their incomes. This is where, because organic farmers are protecting the environment, are protecting national health, are protecting the domestic and the national market. I think this is concerning the national one. The export-oriented could be a relevant way to improve organic farming by the following way. I've been a founder of an association which is called 4A. It's a French one based in France, Association Autonomie Alimentaire en Afrique. It means the Association of Nutritional Autonomy in Africa. Our goal is to export organic products from African country, local one, organic one, to be exported to France. And the importers in France will be paying those products with a premium price that will be sent directly to African countries to help all the organic farmers grow their crops and feed the children in the schools with organic products, with organic meals. This is how we thought, and now we're starting to get some comments and some market. It's a very impressive market that will be developed in France, and I think it's one of the ways that we can improve the organic farming to export oriented, in addition to the domestic one.
Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us in the program today. I particularly want to commend our guest speakers, Professor Raymond, for joining us from South Africa, Professor Azim Khalid, for joining us from Morocco, and Professor Meludu Nkiru for joining us from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, over there in Nigeria. And I also want to thank Professor Juma for joining us on the road from Tanzania. We miss her very important, brilliant contributions due to the fact that she was in transit. And we also want to join all of those that contributed to engaging and driving the conversation live. We appreciate your time. We appreciate all the energy and intellectual contributions you brought to bear to drive this conversation. We are going to be bringing it to a close now, but the conversation continues on our various platforms, including our Discuss community at the Leaders of Africa. And this conversation also continues on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Join us across all of those platforms to continue the conversation. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us once again on this live series, the first in the series on hunger and food insecurity problem in Africa, controversies and opportunities. This is not going to be the last in the series. This is the first in the series, and the debate and the conversation continue. Please do continue to follow and monitor our activities at the Leaders of Africa. You can specifically continue to visit our website to receive updates on all of our activities. You can reach us on www.leadersofafrica.org, and we continue to look forward to your participation in all of our programs. Thank you, and do have the rest of the best of the day.